going. 5, 4, 3. Now.
Wow.
All right.
Well, thank you, Jesus.
Yeah. That was not. No. Thank you, Jesus. That was not good.
No.
Still not good.
Oh.
No, I mean, it's good, but it's still not good that this keeps happening.
Yeah. Are we on?
It looks like we are.
It says
0 drop frames. Oh, Jim's gone.
Jim's gone.
He just dropped
I don't know.
now.
He just dropped.
I don't know what happened with the Jim, but
Jim.
let's. I don't know what's going on. Something with the server or something with our service provider.
Yeah.
Because apparently they do some updates all the time, and they just maybe they did one. I don't know, and it just did not go very well. And I mean, I don't see us on the screen or anything. Click a refresh on the yeah, there you go. So it's a real pain in the ass. I really hope this gets resolved very soon.
Yes, I'm not a fan of technical difficulties.
No, me neither.
Especially when they're out of our control, basically.
Well, Jim's gone.
Yeah, I don't know what even happened with Jim.
Well, he couldn't stay for too much longer anyway.
Sure.
He discorporeated.
He'll probably not be coming back. If he does, it'll probably only be for a moment. So, this is... Oh, Jim's back.
There he is, yeah. All right.
Hi,
this
Jim.
is
Sorry, we thought you discorporeated.
I would like to
forever.
apologize to everybody, but how about we just try to get this done? No, Chris, I'll add that later.
I got it. Perfect now.
In parentheses at least.
Okay.
Are we live?
Yeah, we are.
We're live. We're on the air.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so why don't I
Beautiful.
start
Those are
us off
parentheses.
where we were.
I said air quotes.
They were just talking about he purchased this mountain. There's a deceitful bow. There's graven images. I checked. The Catholic Bible says idols.
Okay.
So let's continue. When God heard this, he was wroth and greatly abhorred Israel, so that he forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent which he placed among men.
Yes, let's talk about the tent, because this tent tradition, I'm sorry, but this is actually really cool. So this tent tradition it goes back, pretty far, and Mark S. Smith makes some pretty cool notes on this. If I can find a place. Yes. So the tent tradition associated with Shiloh, referencing the psalm, conforms to the Ugaritic descriptions of El's abode as a tent. The narrative elements of the divine appearance to Samuel in incubation dreams, the divine gift of a child to Hannah, and the El name of Elkanah, suggested in El worshiper, perhaps, also cohere with the view that El was the original god of the Bet Elohim there, and he references Judges. It is probably no accident that Psalm 78 repeatedly uses El names and epithets in describing the rise and fall of the sanctuary at Shiloh.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it does end on a hopeful note.
And let's continue there.
Okay. And delivered his strength into captivity and his glory into the enemy's hand. He gave his people over also unto the sword, and was wroth with his inheritance. The fire consumed their young men, and their maidens were not given to marriage. Their priests fell by the sword, and their widows made no lamentation. Then the Lord awaked as one out of sleep, and like a mighty man that shouteth by reason and wine. And he smote his enemies in the hinder parts. He put them to a perpetual reproach. Moreover, he refused the tabernacle of Joseph, and chose not the tribe of Ephraim, but chose the tribe of Judah, the Mount Zion which he loved. And he built his sanctuary like high places, like the earth which he hath established forever. He chose David also his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds, from following the ewes great with young. He brought him to feed Jacob his people, and Israel his inheritance. So he fed them according to the integrity of his heart, and guided them by the skillfulness of his hands. And that's the end of Psalm 78.
Yes, it is.
Hey, if you're enjoying the stream so
or
far,
whatever we have
right.
had of this stream. Yeah.
if you can enjoy the stream,
Yeah.
then
Do it.
Yeah, give
Do
us
the thumbs and the buttons and
give
the
us a
clickies.
like,
Yeah. That'd be cool.
share it with your friends and stuff,
Yeah. All that other stuff. And we know that.
Do it.
and buy us stuff from our Amazon wish list.
Yeah. Man, what a pain in the ass.
Yeah, what
Well,
a pain.
People do that?
Yeah, people have bought us all sorts of books. We use
I need
books
an
on the
Amazon
show.
wish list.
Yeah, I mean, Landon got us Alter's translation here and commentary.
Yeah.
No way, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
right?
like $40.
I think this thing was way more than $40.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, no, we
All books. Books can be
Wait,
very
what is-
expensive.
Let me see it.
well, no, it's the entire set.
It's the whole both volumes, or how many volumes is it?
It's three volumes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, never mind. I'm totally not even thinking about the same thing. That's probably a lot more than $60.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said 40. Don't you?
He
read
did
back?
say
Oh,
40.
wow,
More
bam.
than 40, more than 60, more than probably more than 120.
It was-
probably closer to like 200.
No, it was around 100.
Yeah.
Around
But
100.
yeah. Anyways, we're gonna leave the shilling stuff for later because we completely understand if you don't care about that, especially after all these technical difficulties. And it's really sad because it was gonna be a really good episode, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very sad.
Anyways,
Sad.
I'll Jim, we know you have to head out soon, because fucking technical difficulties.
This next one's really short. I can stay through this next one if you want.
Yeah, sure, we can do that.
But let's have Lawrence read it.
Yeah, I'll read that.
I'm done reading
Yes,
right now.
for right now. All right, so Psalm 79, and for Psalm 79, some of it is actually going to be it's actually quoted in First Maccabees. So once we start First Maccabees, we're gonna have to remember some of this, at least a portion of it, because it's gonna be quoted in there.
Yes, before we get into it, Psalm 79 is a communal lament and is closely related to Psalms 44 and 74. Conditions during the destruction of Jerusalem and Babylonian exile in 587 BC comply best with the description found in Psalm 79.
Right, and what it's talking about, the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians, is mentioned several more times in the text, in Second Chronicles, Jeremiah, Second Kings.
Yeah. It's quoted all the time. I think it was probably the most important event in Jewish history, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Well, if not the most important, it was the most prominent in writing.
No, I think it was probably the most important, at least for the development of Judaism. Yeah, I think so.
Sure. Right. I mean, they eventually, essentially had to re-identify. They had to build a new origin story.
Yeah, they had to build, metaphorically and literally in some cases.
Right.
They had to rebuild, and I think it was
they necessarily took on a lot of influence from Babylonian culture and religion, even things like concepts of the soul that they will never be able to get rid of because they don't know anything else, because all those years in captivity, were institutionalized.
Yeah. All right. So Psalm 79, a psalm of Asaph. Oh God, the nations have come into your inheritance. They have defiled your holy temple. They have laid Jerusalem in ruins.
So, this entire psalm, a cry of anguish over the destruction of Jerusalem and the defilements of the temple, vividly testifies to the use of psalm form as a poetic vehicle, not only for set liturgical occasions, but also for a strong response to historical events. Though some interpreters have sought to locate the psalm in the Hasmonean period, the reference to reducing Jerusalem to ruins accords far better with the catastrophe of the Babylonian conquest in 586 BCE.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
They have given the bodies of your servants to the birds of the heavens for food, the flesh of your faithful to the beasts of the earth. They have poured out their blood like water all around Jerusalem, and there was no one to bury them.
So the object of the verb in this line is merely implied in the Hebrew.
Good to know.
Yes.
We have become a taunt to our neighbors, mocked and derided by those around us. How long, O Lord, will you be angry forever? Will your jealousy burn like fire? Pour out your anger on the nations that do not know you, and on the kingdoms that do not call upon your name. For they have devoured Jacob and laid waste his habitation.
So there's a little bit earlier in verse 6, maybe 5, I'm not sure, in your translation, which says, pour out your wrath on the nations that did not know you. It says, this verse, memorably recited in the Passover Seder service as the door of the house is ceremonially opened, picks up the verb shafak, which is used for the spilling or shedding of blood earlier in verse 3 and later in verse 10. So this is used in the Passover Seder.
Yep.
It also uses it the same way in Jeremiah 10:25 when it says, "Pour out your fury on the Gentiles who do not know you."
Mm-hmm.
Do not remember against us our former iniquities. Let your compassion come speedily to meet us, for we are brought very low. Help us, O God of our salvation, for the glory of your name. Deliver us and atone for our sins, for your name's sake. So yeah, this is, instead of saying, do it for us, it's like, no, do it for you. You'll look really good if you do this. This is for your benefit.
And Asaph was saying that he acknowledged that they had so royally fucked up that there was nothing that they could do to atone for it, that God would have to do it out of mercy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyways, why should the nations say, where is their God? Let the avenging of the outpoured blood of your servants be known among the nations before our eyes.
Which is to say here and now.
Yeah. Let the groans of the prisoners come before you. According to your great power, preserve those doomed to die.
So it says, let the captives groan come before you. By your arm's greatness, unbind those marked for death. Alter says, in addition to the killings, those who have survived are being marched off into captivity to an uncertain fate that could well mean death. This verse tempts one to infer that the psalm may actually have been composed by one of the Judahites taken off to exile in Babylonia.
That would make perfect sense.
Yes.
Let the groans of the prisoners come before you. According to your great power, preserve those doomed to die. Return sevenfold into the lap of our neighbors, the taunts with which they have taunted you, O Lord.
Right. This sevenfold return for the taunts that are brought up earlier in the psalm is like an asymmetric response, right? So.
Oh yeah, the whole thing about being sevenfold is because it's completeness. It's a week.
Yes.
So that's probably why it was used in the story of Cain and Abel.
Right. If something bad happens to us on one day, let it happen to other people every day.
Yeah, it was just another way of saying that saying sevenfold just means like a lot of it, and in this case, it's just vengeance against the people who inflicted pain on Judah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we, your people, the sheep of your pasture, will give thanks to you forever. From generation to generation, we will recount your praise. Probably the thing.
It's a very common Psalms motif.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Although that is the end of Psalm 79. Yes. Wasn't really too much stuff to cover.
See, but his mistake is he says we will give you thanks forever, not we are giving you thanks forever. Like that's where you mess up, buddy. Like you got to be doing it 24/7.
Ooh.
Yeah, but no, it's just in the future at a later date.
Yeah, it's like you pay up, God, like, and then I'll think about it.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, so Jim, you said you had to head out after this one.
Yeah, I really should, but I had a good time, guys.
Yeah, it was a good
both
time.
in and
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, sorry about the
Thanks
technical
for the
issues.
assistance for getting us up
Definitely.
and running
No.
at least that first time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, anytime.
Hopefully we'll have you on for an episode soon that won't completely devolve into technical problems.
Yeah.
We'll
Sweet. Sounds good, guys.
All
I
right.
blame the Bible, but
Okay.
I blame the internet. See
Everyone,
ya.
Jim the Mustache Majors.
Woo!
Subscribe,
Yes,
follow, do the clicky things. All right.
absolutely. All right,
You
see you
guys-
later, Jim. Okay.
All right.
So where are we now?
We're on Psalm 80.
Yes, Psalm 80.
And I'll give these to you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Psalm 80. To the chief musician upon Shoshanim Duth, a psalm of Asaph.
So on that, the general meaning of this Hebrew term is precept, pact or treaty obligation. Here it would appear to have a musical or perhaps literary meaning, or testimony, perhaps, but we have no way of knowing precisely what it indicates.
All right. Give ear, O shepherd of Israel, thou that leadest Joseph like a flock, thou that dwellest between the cherubim, shine forth.
Yeah, if you remember the cherubim on the Ark of the Covenant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. This is more support for your
Yeah,
Yahweh
as a
statue.
statue in the temple. Yeah.
yeah.
And if you, we're not going to get into that argument today, but if you do want to see a full argument on the Ark of the Covenant actually being a physical statue of Yahweh, I suggest picking up Thomas Romer's The Invention of God. He has a chapter on it, and I think it's really good.
All right. Before Ephraim and Benjamin and Manasseh stir up thy strength, come and save us. Turn us again, O God, and cause thy face to shine, and we shall be saved.
Yeah, so here's some stuff on the specific tribes that he's listing here. So the crisis referred to in Psalm 80 would probably have been the destruction of the country by the Assyrians, the use of Joseph as a synonym for Israel, and the references to the tribes Ephraim, Benjamin, and Manasseh support the supposition that the psalm could be read against the background of the destruction of the northern kingdom by the Assyrians. And if you remember the Assyrian invasion, that's what they're talking about.
Whereas the Psalm 78 was specifically against Ephraim, right? And
In a
was,
way, yeah,
well,
yeah.
super pro-Judah,
Yeah.
right?
Actually, oh my God, because of all the issues, I
Right,
totally,
we didn't go into it that much.
yeah. You know what? After this psalm, how about we go back and talk about the dating a
All
little
right,
bit of
all
Psalm
right.
78?
Let's do that.
Okay.
After this psalm.
Yeah, definitely. So anyways, yeah, the destruction of the northern kingdom by the Assyrians during the years 732 to 722 BCE. It is significant that the Septuagint added the expression concerning the Assyrians to the title of Psalm 80,
Yes.
which is pretty neat.
All right. O Lord God of hosts, how long wilt thou be angry against the prayer of thy people? Thou feedest them with the bread of tears and givest them tears to drink in great measure. That's terrible. Thou makest us a strife unto our neighbors, and our enemies laugh amongst themselves.
So-
This is like a theme that popped up earlier in these psalms.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one of the things that ties together the Psalms of Asaph.
They're laments
yeah.
and they're depressing.
Well, I mean, a lot of the Psalms are,
Yeah.
pretty much any lamentation, you're going to see something similar to this.
Yeah. Thou makest us a strife unto our neighbors, and our enemies laugh amongst themselves. Turn us again, O God of hosts, and cause thy face to shine, and we shall be saved. Thou hast brought a vine out of Egypt. Thou hast cast out the heathen and planted it.
Yes, let's talk about the vine.
Yes.
So according to Alter, the vine as a symbol of the nation would be a familiar idea to the ancient audience. It is variously deployed in Isaiah, Hosea, and Jeremiah. As the image is elaborated through the next few verses, it develops a logic that the Israelite agriculturalists would have readily grasped. why would anyone go to the trouble of transplanting a vine from one region to another, clearing the ground all around it, cultivating it so that it grows to splendid proportions, if in the end one breaches its protective wall and allows noxious wild beasts to destroy it? And then, according to Erdman's, where does it start here? The vine is frequently used in the Old Testament to describe the relationship between God and his people, pretty much citing the same books. The allegory is used here to describe the salvation history of Israel from the Exodus from Egypt, the occupation, and the settlement in the land, but up to the time of the monarchy when the borders of the country were at their most expansive. The vine allegory refers to the exile. Why then have you broken down its walls?
Mm.
Yeah.
The hills were covered with the shadow of it, and the boughs thereof were like the goodly cedars. She sent out her boughs unto the sea, and her branches unto the river. This, I'm assuming, is Israel.
The probable hyperbolic reference to the Euphrates, though it could conceivably be less grandiosely the Jordan.
No, the female
Oh, okay.
phrases, they go from they're like, thou hast done these things, then unless they're referring to the vine as a female.
Yeah,
then
because
they're
yeah,
referring to God as a
Israel as the nation has been referred to as a female.
Israel's been referred to as a female.
Yeah.
It could be an Asherah thing.
I wouldn't think so.
All right, because there's no groves, right?
Well, yeah.
Why hast thou then broken down her hedges, so that all they which pass by the way do pluck her? Okay, they're talking about Israel during the exile.
Yeah, and just for the record, yours, while it has the the feminine, it's just completely neutral here.
Okay. The boar out of the wood doth waste it, and the wild beast of the field doth devour it. Return, we beseecheth thee, O God of hosts. Look down from the heaven, and behold!
Behold!
That's two of them. Behold.
Yeah.
Well,
one
I
for
think
each stream.
one was, yeah. And visit this vine, and the vineyard which thy right hand hath planted, and the branch that thou hath made strong for thyself. It is burned with fire. It is cut down. They perish at the rebuke of thy countenance. Let thy hand be upon the man of thy right hand, upon the Son of Man whom thou madest strong for thyself. So will not we go back down from thee. Quicken us, and we will call upon thy name. Turn us again, O Lord God of hosts. Cause thy face to shine, and we shall be saved. So this turn us again returned to various times through the psalm.
Yeah.
Kind of a bookend.
So I think we should just quickly go back and talk about the dating of Psalm 82.
Right, because there's not much to Psalm 80. It's like a lamentation.
Psalm
of
78, I
being
should say.
In exile, basically.
Yes. Okay. So I have actually starred down here because I thought it was important, and then I'm gonna comment here from Erdman's and then from Witherington. So, unfortunately, the psalm itself does not provide us with any very distinct guidelines. However, one could make the deduction from the psalm that the exile of the northern kingdom must already have taken place, but that the Judean monarchy still existed. And the exile of the southern kingdom, therefore, still lay in the future.
Is that it for Psalm 80?
Yeah, that was Psalm 80.
Okay.
Psalm 78 should probably be dated at some point between the exile of the northern kingdom and that of the southern kingdom. If this dating is accepted, the psalm could be regarded as a commentary on the exile of the northern kingdom and a warning to the people of the southern kingdom, which makes perfect sense, I think.
Yes. Why don't we get into Psalm 81?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Nah.
Psalm 81 it is.
Because Psalm 82 is pretty exciting, actually, in comparison.
It is, yeah. Yeah, Psalm 82 is pretty great. So Psalm 81. To the choir master, according to the Gittith of Asaph.
So, before we get too into it, I'm going to read a little bit from Eerdmans here. So the main theme running through the two parts of the psalm, because it's divided into two strophes, is that of religious celebration and cultic observance are not in themselves sufficient. The community of faith needs to listen to God as well. Although Psalm 81 has patent association with the cult and is sometimes linked to a specific cultic occasion, such as the Autumn Feast of Tabernacles or the Passover Feast, it is impossible to reconstruct the specific cultic context of the psalm. The dates of origin of the Psalm 81 is just as difficult to establish.
Sing aloud to God our strength. Shout for joy to the God of Jacob. Raise a song. Sound the tambourine, the sweet lyre with the harp.
So, it says raise a song.
Yes, raise a song.
From its child rearing, go through its teens together, get it into a good school,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Alter says lift your voices in song, but he says about the Hebrew that the Hebrew says perhaps elliptically lift song.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense, his translation there. Blow the trumpet at the new moon, at the full moon, on our feast day. For it is a statute for Israel, a rule of the God of Jacob. He made it a decree in Joseph when he went out over the land of Egypt. I hear a language I had not known. And this is in quotes here.
It's what he's declaring here for Israel.
I'm listening.
Yeah. He says, in an associative side, the antiquity of the regulations governing the new moon carries us back to the beginnings of Israelite history in the Exodus story.
Just remember, like, all those feasts.
Yes.
There were too many.
I relieved your shoulder of the burden. Your hands were freed from the basket. In distress you called, and I delivered you. I answered you in the secret place of thunder.
In all likelihood, this fine, if somewhat mystifying phrase refers to God's wielding thunder or lightning as a weapon, following the precedent of the Canaanite sky god.
Would make sense. I tested you at the waters of Meribah, Selah. I like that it's used there in a quote. Hear, O my people, while I admonish you, O Israel, if you would but listen to me. There shall be no strange god among you. You shall not bow down to a foreign god. I am the Lord your God, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt.
The entirety of these two... Oh, finish the verse.
Open your mouth wide, and I will fill it.
The entirety of these two verses...
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Yep. The entirety of these two verses is a free paraphrase of the beginning of the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good point. But my people did not listen to my voice. Israel would not submit to me. So I gave them over to their stubborn hearts to follow their counsels. Oh, that my people would listen to me, that Israel would walk in my ways. I would soon subdue their enemies and turn my hand against their foes. Those who hate the Lord would cringe toward him, and their fate would last forever.
He's referring to himself in the third person.
Yeah. But he's like the rock. But he would feed you with the finest of the wheat, and with honey from the rock I would satisfy you.
The Rock, that guy, the wrestler?
Yeah.
He's here
that
to give
rock.
you some honey.
I said it like the rock, and it's the rock.
So at the end, it says, and I would feed him with finest wheat, and from the rock I would sate him with honey. Alter says, the hymn must refer to Israel. Such switches without signaling transition in pronominal reference occur frequently in biblical usage. The Masoretic text also shows a third-person verb, and he would feed him, but many scholars amend this to the first person, as does this translation. The poem concludes with still another grammatical anomaly, because the received text reads, I would sate you. It is at least conceivable that the poet wanted to revert at the very end to the historic third-person reference to a direct address to Israel, as in verses 8 through 11. In English, this would be confusing, and one manuscript version, as well as the Septuagint and the Syriac, reads him.
All right, and that was the end of Psalm 81.
Yes.
We can hop into probably the most interesting psalm, pretty much the crux of our discussion today.
Yeah.
Psalm 82. Let's hop into it.
Let's do Psalm 82. That rhymed.
Yeah, I guess it did.
Yep.
Got to get some books open. Jeez.
Psalm of Asaph. God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods.
Among the gods. See, this is great. So just right off the bat, from Erdman's, the major interpretive problem which has engaged the attention of researchers for many years and which has not been resolved with any certainty is the question what the word Elohim in 82:1 and 6 refers to. While one group of scholars is of the opinion that the word refers to people, in particular to human judges, another group contends that the reference here is to gods, which I think makes more sense, honestly. The view expressed here supports the latter belief, namely that the poet is referring to gods. Through the use of metaphorical and mythological language, the poet is attempting to persuade his readers of the greatness of God. In contrast to this, the gods are portrayed as insignificant and impotent beings. To this end, the poet uses the judge metaphor.
Right. And I remember in Sarna, on the Book of Psalms over there, he talks about how this congregation of gods is found in Ugaritic.
It is. So, I mean, pretty much the first few chapters of Mark S. Smith's The Origins of Biblical Monotheism is devoted to outlining this congregation, this group of gods, the host of heaven and whatnot. And then he tries to, separate them into classes. Now, what I think I'll actually wait until the end of this to read from Smith's work.
All right.
But other than that, yes, let's continue for now.
How long will ye judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Selah. So these are these other gods.
Yeah.
Defend the poor and fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Defend the poor and needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness, and the foundations of the earth are out of course. So, you got to help these people because they don't know any better.
Yeah, all the earth's foundations totter. This is not, as may first appear, a non sequitur. The order of creation itself, in the view of biblical monotheism, is founded on justice. When the lesser gods allow injustice to become rampant, the foundations of the earth are shaken. The perversion of justice is the first step toward the apocalypse. Now, this is very reminiscent of the themes in the astronomical book, First Enoch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very reminiscent. Of course.
This would have been beforehand.
Right, because they have this parallel between the poor and the rich that carries on throughout the Book of Enoch. And they really set up this case for, like, the kings and the rich people and the wealthy are the ones who are going to suffer most during the judgment.
And the fact that, there's a certain order to everything in creation. Yes. And that stuff, if that gets out of whack, it's a problem.
Yes. I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. But ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes.
Yeah, so I think the
very similar to the Book of Enoch throughout the Book of the Watchers. When he talks to the fallen angels, he says continually that they will die like men.
Yeah, and I think one of the most interesting parts about this is that when it comes to the use of gods here, it's obviously a reference to actual immortal beings because he contrasts it with mortal beings.
Right. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations. So it's strange because previously this is El, right?
Well, yeah, it's all.
It's El talking to the Elohim.
Yeah.
Right?
So let's.
But also in that last verse there, it says, "Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit the nations," which obviously is not El referencing himself.
Right. That's this is because that's out of the quotation.
Right.
So
there's no quotation in the King James version.
Oh, okay.
No
well, the quotation begins at verse 2 and ends at verse 7.
Right.
For me.
So verse 1 serves to set the scene.
Yeah.
And it's El judging the gods. Then 2 through 7 are El's judgment, and 8 is a call to action from, I guess, the author of the psalm, not from any of the gods.
Right, exactly. Right. So on this, Alter says, why does the speaker need to say this at the very end? In the ancient world, the multiplicity of nations is associated with a multiplicity of gods. Each nation has its patron god. For example, Jephthah's words to the Amorite king about Yahweh and the Amorite deity Shemesh in Judges 11:24, as well as a variety of gods and goddesses presiding over the various realms of nature. But that order has now proven to be judicially and morally bankrupt, and it is the God of Israel alone who holds in estate all the nations of earth. So this also kind of ties into some archaeological finds, because when it comes to, patron gods of certain places, it goes even further than just nations in a broader sense. It goes to even specific cities. Like there is Yahweh of Samaria and Yahweh of Timon, and those are both things we have found, to inscriptions that we found. So that's it's definitely true what Alter said there.
No, it's definitely a movement from henotheism to monotheism.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely.
Because he's outright saying to these other gods that they're going to die.
Yeah. So I'm going to quote here something from Smith, and this is the crux of today's discussion here. So if you're here right now, this is the interesting part. I mean, there were some really interesting parts with 78. Yeah. But anyways. So, he goes over a whole bunch of arguments about the links between Yahweh and El, and, who the original God of Israel was. And then in this section, was El Israel's original God? The information in the preceding section makes this question reasonable, despite the apparent complications that this reconstruction may pose for later theology. Moreover, it is a reasonable hypothesis because one basic piece of information, the name of Israel, contains not the divine element of Yahweh, but El's name, which we already knew. Yes. With the element El. If Yahweh had been the original God of Israel, then its name might have been Yisra Yahweh, or perhaps better, Yisra Yah, in accordance with other Hebrew proper names containing the divine name. This fact would suggest that El, not Yahweh, was the original chief god of the group named Israel. The distribution of El and Yahweh in personal names in many so-called early poems likewise points in this direction. Proper names do pose difficulties when used to reconstruct religious history, yet when used in conjunction with other evidence, proper names offer admissible evidence. Israel is a very old name, apparently known both at Ebla and Ugarit, and also known in the Merneptah stele as well. When the name began to refer to the historical phenomenon of people in the Iron Age Highlands, perhaps it no longer referred to the god whom it was devoted. Biblical texts do attest to Yahweh and El as different gods sanctified by early Israel. He lists here Genesis and Deuteronomy, some Dead Sea Scrolls stuff. Especially Chris Hansen would like this one. I'm sure he already knows about this one, but Deuteronomy 32, 8 through 9. And then he goes on, if El was the original God of Israel, then how did Yahweh come to be the chief God of Israel and identified with El? We may posit 3 hypothetical stages, not necessarily discrete in time or geography, to account for the information presented so far. 1. El was the original God of early Israel. As noted, the name Israel points to the first stage. So do references to El as a separate figure. He references Genesis 49 as well as this psalm that we just read, Psalm 82. 2. El was the head of an Israelite pantheon, with Yahweh as its warrior god. Texts that mention both El and Yahweh, but not as the same figure, listing this again, suggest an early accommodation of the two in some early form of Israelite polytheism. If Psalm 82 reflects an early model of an Israelite polytheistic assembly, then El would have been its head, with the warrior Yahweh as a member of the second tier. And that's the classes I was talking about. Yet the same psalm also uses familial language. The other gods are said to be the sons of the Most High. And Most High is probably here El Elyon. Accordingly, Yahweh might have been earlier understood as one of these sons. And then 3, El and Yahweh were identified as a single god. If El was the original God of Israel, then his merger with Yahweh, the southern divine warrior, predates the Song of Deborah in Judges 5, at least for the area of Israel where this composition was created. In this text, Yahweh, the divine warrior from the south, is attributed a victory in the central highlands. The merger probably took place at different rates in different parts of Israel, in which case it was relatively early in the area where Judges 5 was composed, but possibly later elsewhere. Many scholars place the poem in the pre-monarchic period, and perhaps the cult of Yahweh spread further into the highlands of Israel in the pre-monarchic period, infiltrating cult sites of El and accommodating to their El theologies, perhaps best reflected by the later version of Deuteronomy 32, 8 through 9. The references to El in Numbers 23 through 24, and he goes into that later in the book, and perhaps Job appear to be further indications of the survival of El's cult in Transjordan. Beyond this rather vaguely defined pattern of distribution, it is difficult to be more specific. So, that was quite a lot I just read there.
Yes.
Now,
but what's your judgment?
So, I think that Yahweh was initially a southern god from like the Edom region, kind of where Saudi Arabia is now, Mount of Sair, that kind of stuff. And I think with a semi-nomadic peoples, he eventually was brought into the land that we now call Israel, and eventually with the people Israel. And eventually they started identifying different gods with Yahweh because it was just easy to kind of do that. So, eventually took on aspects of Baal and then eventually took on aspects of El until he was the only one left. Mm-hmm. But of course, it gets more complicated when we're talking about, Josiah's reforms and the exile. And yeah, but that is my general assessment.
It sounds appropriate. I would say that it's probably the case that El, if not being the primary deity for an extended period of time, was at least the primary deity for some period of time. I'm not sure how long.
Right, but it would be improper to call those Israelites Jewish.
Right.
So far in the past, it would really be improper to do that.
Right.
They're Jew-like.
Not even. They're vastly different.
Jew
They are
ancestors?
vastly, well, yeah, but they're
There
still
you
vastly
go.
different.
They're proto-Jews.
Yeah.
Let's not
I've
use
heard,
that
I've
term
heard
again.
it actually called something like that. Definitely.
You don't want to use the term proto-Jews?
That sounds ridiculous.
Well, whatever.
All right, whatever. Anyways, thanks for joining our discussion.
Yeah.
We wish we didn't have so many technical issues today,
Yeah.
because that's a bunch of bullshit.
It was quite bad.
Yeah, definitely was. But if you were here earlier, if you're here now, thank you so much for joining us. And I decided not to do too much shilling earlier because it's like after that you would want to support us. I don't know. But now we're going to do the shilling.
If you've seen any of our other shows, you already know what we're going to say. But, you know.
Anyways, let's say it again. Patreon, you can get a lot of cool stuff there. You can be on the show.
Yeah,
Chris.
You could contribute to our goal of starting our God show.
Yeah,
The High
that's true.
Place.
The High Place.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be really good. We're setting high hopes because it's high standard we got.
Yeah.
A very high standard.
It doesn't
High
require
place.
high internet either.
Does not.
Yeah.
What else we got? We got Teespring. Lots of cool shirts and stuff on Teespring.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can support us that way.
Lots of stuff on our Amazon wish list.
Yes, Amazon wish list. If you want to see a video on something, if you get us a book on that subject, we will almost definitely use it as a source.
Almost definitely.
Yeah, or it'll be on this table.
There may be instances where we end up not being able to, but
Yeah.
those are few and far between.
Yeah.
I don't even think that's come up yet. But
I don't think so either.
we'll talk.
Not yet.
Anyways, so those are three big things. Facebook and Twitter, that's free. That is absolutely free. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Links are in the description.
You can like the videos that we make.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But
Like,
not like, the
press like.
metaphysical, like, I like your video, but like actually pressing the
Pressing
like
like helps. Sharing, subscribing if you haven't. Hopefully this never happens again. It happened once before.
Not this way, but definitely we've had an internet bug before.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just
Yes.
something with the connection. Who knows?
Well,
Other than that, I think that's everything.
I think that's everything.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. We are starting Maccabees on Friday.
First Maccabees.
Yes, first Maccabees on Friday.
Yes, it's going to be great.
I think it'll be pretty good.
I remember Maccabees being nuts. Well, not quite as nuts as Enoch, but nuts in a different way.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that's all. We
Yes.
will
See you on Friday, but it says Sunday. See you later,
maybe
everybody. Goodbye.
eventually.
Love you.